Cheers, guys. Epix 911, welcome to the Elitist Geek VR news for Monday, November 28th, 2016. Let's jump right into VR news, guys. No preamble for once. Let's talk about Ubisoft. Now, Ubisoft had a blog post this morning that read as follows. Making our VR titles cross-platform has been a goal of ours from the start. We are happy to announce that Eagle Flight, Werewolves from Within, and Star Trek Bridge Crew will be playable cross-platform on PlayStation VR, Oculus Rift, and HTC Vive. Now, whatever your definition of cross-platform, to me it's PC, PS4. I don't consider two different HMDs to be cross-platform, but I understand what Ubisoft is saying by that, and they're focusing on the multiplayer co-op aspect. I think we're going to get to a point where you just buy the game and it doesn't matter what HMD you have, it's going to work. It's a matter of time, but that's probably where we're going to get to eventually. We've seen it before, the 3D accelerator wars in the 90s, where we had certain games work with certain cards. That corrected itself. We had a couple of victors. The point being, now games just work. There might be different features, right? Different performances. One card is slower, one is faster, but the game works. Whereas at one time, that copy of MechWarrior 2 only worked with your Matrox Mystique. So, now again, Ubisoft is specifically talking about multiplayer and co-op play, and given the market sizes right now, it probably makes the most fiscal sense to do that. And with them kind of leading the charge, even though others, maybe not AAA publishers, but others have done similar, I think it makes sense. It's the way to go. Others are probably going to follow suit. So that shouldn't likely be a concern moving forward. Are we going to find people, to be able to multiplay with? Next up, Global News Network. This is the Russian-based RT, shares first 360-degree videos recorded in space. It's a Russian cosmonaut, Andrei Borisenko. He is heading a effort to create a 360-degree documentary about life on board the International Space Station. And there's a clip of that below in the link that I'm going to include. And here's what he says about it. Space 360 is a fantastic project. It's been an incredible collaboration. The first time in history we are making an immersive video of the station that will give viewers an opportunity to see everything here the way we see it and get an idea of what it feels like to be here. And short of a $20 million, ticket payable to the Russian Space Agency, most of us are never going to get to the ISS. What an awesome way to be able to experience it. I remember when I was watching Commander Hatfield, the Canadian, some of those amazing pictures he was taking, what it would be like to be on the station and see it through his eyes. And hey, we're stepping in that direction. Now, the RT app, you can get that on iOS or the Android store. Haven't been able to see if there's a PC way of doing that, but for sure, iOS or Android via the RT app. Next news piece, VR to replace high street shopping by 2050. Wasn't so much the article, it's the prediction of the future that I always get a kick out of, right? Star Trek, Space Odyssey, Back to the Future. There's things they nail, things they get hopelessly wrong, and kind of that middle ground, right? Yeah, we don't have warp drive. We can't bend space-time like they could in Star Trek, but our phones are way more powerful than their communicators are. There's all kinds of things we can do they couldn't. And our computers aren't powered with tape drives anymore like they were in Star Trek. It's optical. It's digital. Way faster. So I always love, the things that predictions get right, the things they can't even imagine, and what they get blatantly wrong. And that quote that I forever quote, but can't remember who first said it, future advances will come in those areas that we today are not wise enough to predict. So true. So with this article, this is from the independent.co UK, UK online news site. The two first predictions are pretty much gimmies. VR HMDs that gauge your mood in the lighting and atmosphere of a store with all the facial recognition stuff we've been seeing, be developed. Yeah, that's probably inevitable. The next one, Immersive VR experiences involving products such as visiting a farm where coffee beans are picked, etc. Again, a gimme. The next two, though, AI assistants that know your interests and taste better than you that can preempt purchases. Now, me personally, way too invasive. Like, I would disable that feature. That's like cookies on steroids on steroids. Some people, they might like that. But I can see software definitely going in that direction. But the last one I got a kick out of that, drone delivery. Can you guys picture millions upon millions of drones crisscrossing the world's skies, dropping off goods? Personally, I can't. I think there's going to be supply chain improvements, things we can't even imagine that are going to make, delivery faster, better. But drone delivery, probably not one of them. But I could be wrong. At least they could be unmanned cargo ships, maybe. But what we think of as, millions of tiny little drones, not so sure. What do you guys think? Same, or can you picture that? Or a different version of that, maybe? Next news piece, yet another VR treadmill. And I've kind of gone back and forth with these. Well, mostly back, and I haven't come back forth. Originally, I thought they'd be cool when I didn't have VR. Now that I actually have VR solutions, I realize how cumbersome and impractical these things really are. This one seems a little sketchy. It's called View VR Treadmill. It's part of a Chinese company's Indiegogo campaign. There's a couple of claims that they make in here that just don't sit right with me. Like, it doesn't matter which HMD you have, whether it's PlayStation, Oculus, HTC, we're just going to work. Doesn't matter if you use gamepad or keyboard strokes, we're just going to work and intercept that and translate that into movement. It's a frictionless system. Look at the pictures that they provide of how the prototype was built, and then you tell me if you think they've actually embedded these claims in there, because they've substantiated none of them. They're just claims, right? And I wish them all the luck. I'm just worried that some of these things are stretching a little bit. It weighs 160 kilograms. That's 350 plus pounds, 220 centimeters in height, over 7 feet tall. Directed clearly at consumers, but most consumers aren't going to be able to fit that anywhere, right? And that's been the biggest disconnect with these treadmills, is who the hell can buy it and put it somewhere? And I have a house and I can't. Imagine if you've got a condo or a small apartment, right? Just not feasible. Arcades, venues, absolutely. Home consumer, probably not. They're looking for 20 grand. They basically raised just over 2 with a month to go. So, next news piece, how VR is redefining live music. And what I like about this article, it's an NBC News article, is what the company with their Boiler Room product is doing, kind of like what the sports guys I was talking about yesterday were doing. Instead of just bringing you to the venue statically, right? A 360-degree static view, meaning from a pivot point. The sports one had you sitting in a suite, a virtual suite, where you could sit with friends and watch a sports event. These guys are thinking of doing the same thing with music. Does that stadium have a 20,000 seat capacity? Maybe. All right, well, how about we bring you to a virtual stadium? So instead of bringing you the stadium, it's the other way around. And I kind of like that concept, like I like the suite one and the sports one. Think about that. A 20,000 seat stadium now has theoretically unlimited attendance capacity. So you can view from any angle, you can experience it with friends. That's an exciting direction for music to go in. And we're probably going to look back and see how rough it was in these early days, but I'm confident within 5 to 10 years, it's going to be freaking amazing to watch concerts. Last news story, Zotac, not to be outdone by their competitors MSI, who I reported on November 10th had their own backpack solution. Zotac has now come out with theirs called the Zotac VR Go. This thing is powered with 32 gigs of RAM. It comes with 16 pre-installed, so you can expand it. A GTX 1070 and gigabytes, hundreds of gigabytes of SSD storage space. So you benefit from the speed and, the non-moving parts there. But I can't help but think, kind of like the treadmill, maybe a little less so, they're good novelty items. It's a good novelty solution. you might want to use it a few times, but as a long-term, sustained, everyday type thing, it's just a matter of when wireless comes out. Whoever nails it, maybe it's HTC Vive with their solution, maybe not, maybe it's somebody else. But whoever nails the wireless, that'll be the death knell for these backpacks. I don't see them lasting beyond that. I could be wrong, but really, it's just gonna, it already kind of feels a little cumbersome and antiquated. How much more when the inevitable happens and wireless is nailed? So it'll be interesting, and we will know within the next few years. All right, guys, cheers as always. Definitely catch you on the VR flip side.